Jo Painter of confidencecoachingforwomen.co.uk. And today I'm going to be talking a bit about something that as women and men we tend to ignore. We tend to avoid as much as possible because it makes us feel uncomfortable. And that's called having the difficult conversation. So when somebody has upset you or gone against your values or done something in some way that has made you feel really uncomfortable and you need to have a conversation about it. So it could be with your boss, it could be with your colleagues at work and the way that you've been treated. It could be with a friend or a family member who has hurt you in some way. But we all come across these situations where we need to speak up for ourselves, but it feels incredibly difficult and requires really some courage and bravery and confidence to do it. So I'm going to be talking you through today 4 steps that you can take when you have to have those difficult conversations. But a lot of us tend to avoid those conversations by going into a passive-aggressive communication style. And that means we don't speak up for how we feel. Instead, we hold it inside, it builds up as resentment and it builds up as anger. And then it probably comes out in non-verbal ways like tuts and rolling eyes. And maybe we save that stress up and that resentment up for another time. And a small thing happens and we explode with anger or other communication styles or aggression. And that isn't helpful and it's probably at a point where it's not appropriate. So it's much better to speak up for yourself, to really respect yourself and to have that difficult or uncomfortable conversation. So it's important, first of all, obviously, to choose the moment. You don't want to speak up immediately if other people are around or if your emotions are really strong and powerful. That way you're not going to have the most assertive conversation. It's going to be driven by emotion. So choose the right time, choose a moment where you can be quite calm and the two of you have space and time to speak to each other. When you've done that, then my 4 steps are: step number 1. Have a mindset of real curiosity. Rather than going in there and I need to tell them this and I need to tell them that, first of all, start from a place where you want to understand their perspective. You want to understand what caused them to behave in this way, and perhaps there's other facts or situations you don't know anything about. So go in there asking questions and really, really listening and understanding their perspective and being curious about what could have driven them to behave like this. Once you've done that, you need to acknowledge what the point they've made. You need to show them that you've really listened and that you've understood their perspective. Doesn't mean you agree with it, but you've heard it and understood it. So acknowledge it in some way. I understand that the way you feel is, or I understand that the behaviours you showed were because of this. So acknowledge them, make them feel respected. And then step number 3 is for you to respect yourself. So this is where you talk about how you feel and the facts from your perspective. So this is about advocating for yourself and really speaking up, saying how you feel. Using I statements is great because then it doesn't feel like you're blaming the other person. So step number 3 is showing respect for yourself and really speaking up. And the final step, which you may not need to use in every conversation, is to have options available, compromises or problem solving, some way of getting to a different outcome that would suit both of you. However, in some conversations, it's just as important, if not more important, that all you get is your voice heard. You get listened to and you get to speak up for those feelings and emotions that you've got. And that is the most important thing in a difficult conversation, that you feel that you've been heard. Because then you really boost your self-worth, you really boost your confidence because you've demonstrated that self-value and self-respect. So difficult conversations are uncomfortable for all of us, but the more that you go into them with these 4 steps in mind, the less likely it's going to be confrontational, the less likely the other person's going to be defensive, and the more likely you are to come out with a positive outcome. So I hope you don't have any need for difficult conversations this week, but if you do, use my 4 steps of curiosity, acknowledgement, self-respect, and if there's an option. So if you use those 4, I'm sure you'll come out with a much more positive outcome than if you go in with your emotions really high and angry. So, if you'd like to talk a lot more about being assertive or about speaking up for yourself, then I'd love to talk to you, and you can book a free consultation with me at www.speakwithjo.com. That's www.speakwithjo.com, or you can just message me here on Facebook or in LinkedIn. This is Jo Painter of Confidence Coaching for Women.co.uk. Thanks for listening.